Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Laura Dabney coming to you live on my second webinar in order to answer all your questions about email coaching. And the reason I love to talk about email coaching is because, like you, I once had a lot of questions, and then I dove in and did it and found out that I really love it. So let me back up a bit because I want to tell you a bit about who I am, because that's one of your questions I've been getting. Who the heck are you, and why do you do email coaching? So I am a psychiatrist. That means I have an MD, and after I got my MD, I did 4 years of training, what we call a residency program, and that was in psychiatry. And that's where I learned all the different ways of treating emotional problems and relationship problems. So in 2000, I opened up my own practice in Virginia Beach, where I still am. And that's where I mostly do psychotherapy. I do a little bit of medication management, but I really love therapy the most. So to that end, I started hearing about life coaching about 5 years ago. It sort of became a big thing. And I wanted to add that to my arsenal. I wanted to be able to offer that to people along with therapy and or medication. So I became certified in life coaching as well. And then up came this idea of email coaching. Okay. But first I want to answer one other question I've been getting, which is what's the difference between therapy and coaching? I love for this to use an example of two cars. Let's say you see two cars on the side of a road. One has a transmission problem, the other one's stuck in the sand. They both look the same, but one needs an overhaul. One needs to be taken out of there. We have to look at under the hood and get the history and all that. That's more like therapy. The other one just needs a push. That's more like coaching. Coaching deals with the problems here and now. Don't go into childhood and the history and all that. We don't need to. Just dealing with problem and how to fix it now. So that's coaching. And email coaching is just that same thing, but all in writing. Okay? So instead of having the verbal dialogue, we're just having a dialogue via writing. Okay? So I know that up front answers a lot of your questions. And now I want to turn this over to my co-host, who is also online with us, Sarah Lingenfelter.
Hello, everyone.
She is my online business manager, and she's been kind enough to come on and deal with all the questions we've been getting and are getting, and she's going to give those to me so I can focus on answering them for you.
Yes, hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. We do have quite a few questions, so I'm going to go through these, and hopefully we get them answered to your satisfaction. If not, you can always email in after this and still get your questions answered. Now, before I jump into some of the specific questions, there's one other thing, Dr. Dabney, I'd love for you to answer and maybe tell everyone, you explained the difference between therapy and coaching, but could you tell them kind of how the email coaching resulted, like how this need came about and you figured out that you could help people with this?
Yes, sure. So once I started doing the coaching, the email coaching came up in more online forums. So I checked that out pretty quickly. And there's a big platform called BetterHelp.com where they actually asked anybody who's interested in email coaching to come and give it a try. So there were a lot of us in that. And I had many, many patients through that, because the clients through that service. And that's where I started email coaching. I was blown away by, I love to be wrong in these situations. I was blown away by how much it was like in-person therapy. It was, we got close, we were able to bond. I was able to help a lot of people. A lot of people were also surprised that it was more helpful than they imagined. It really was very similar to in-person. And I'd like to, if you don't mind, Sarah, we go off on a little bit there because I do know a lot of people are asking, how can you possibly get close to somebody through
Right.
email?
Yeah.
Instead of me just saying, trust me, I like to compare it to, if any of you are readers, right? When you read a book, you get so engrossed with that character. It's not even a real character half the time. But you get that closeness. You feel like you know them, their thoughts, their feelings, what they're doing, their aspirations, their problems. And that's the best way I can give you that comparison because it isn't the platform we're bonding with. We can't bond with a computer. We can't bond with email. We can't bond with a physical body. It's the person's thoughts and feelings and what they're saying that we bond with.
Yeah.
So if they're saying it through written word, you have that bond right there.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love of you comparing it to a book because it's true. I hadn't thought about it that way. There's so many times I read a story and I might get to the end of a series and I'm like, no, what happens next in their life? So you're right.
Them. I don't want them to go away. I do that too.
Right. So that's a great example. I think that will really help people to understand how you can form that bond and have that trust and, get close and learn about someone. So I love how you brought up the BetterHelp platform. So maybe tell people who, one of the questions we've had is who's going to see these messages? Who's the communication between? Who are they getting on the other side?
And that really, I love that question because I'd sort of forgotten to address that in the emails that I've been giving you all over the past 2 weeks. We have a platform here for emailing. It is HIPAA compliant and it's totally safe. It's through a platform that we've been using for years called Simple Practice. And it has a messaging service. And it actually goes right to your preferred email, but it comes with a code that you can click on and it's very simple. You don't have to write the code down. You can just go right into it within 5 minutes. And if you don't go within 5 minutes, it becomes encrypted. Then you need to use the code. So that's taken care of in that way. And we've used that for all of the patient communication in our office as well.
That's great. And so do the messages go straight to you, like when they're asking you questions?
Yes. So with my version of the Simple Practice, everything comes to me. No one in the office will see it.
Okay.
There's no reason for them to see it, but it just comes directly to my personal email.
Okay. So if they're sharing things that might be, difficult for them, they can rest a little easier knowing it's only you that are going to see it and you're not having to worry about anybody else, knowing their personal information.
Yeah, I've learned you can't be open if you think it's not private. It just hinders the whole process. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the other questions we've had along with that are, I think people understand the idea of, being able to send you emails and get their questions answered, but what are the guidelines? Can they email as much as you want? Is there things that are off limits? That's one of the big ones. What can they send you? Just kind of how does that work?
Yeah, it seems oversimplistic to say you can email me anything you want, but that's really what it is. You can email me as much and or as little as you want. I think people are maybe concerned that if everybody is emailing me all the time, how can I possibly have time? I do want to reassure you that from working this in the past, I do know the limit of people I can take, so I can be sure and answer everybody's questions. If you have 20 or if you have 1, I do limit the number and I know what that number is. So rest assured, whatever you say or how many times you answer me, I answer at least 2 times a day, and I'll share those with you if you join up, what those 2 times a day are that I will answer, so I get back to everybody within 12 hours.
Yeah, and that's good to know. They don't have to wait a long time, not like making an appointment to get into the office to see someone if they have something they're really needing some advice on or an answer kind of quickly. So what would happen? So some of the questions we've had along that with what can they ask you? What if they do ask you something and maybe you feel it's not going to be able, it's a little, I don't know if too serious is the right word, but a bigger issue. Is there support they can get beyond the email coaching?
That's also come up. It's fairly rare, but yes, if something comes up that's very serious, 2 options. One is I will offer to get on the phone with that person or do a teleconferencing. We also have a very private HIPAA compliant video conferencing platform we use for that kind of thing. So I'll offer that to them. The other option I've offered people is to find them an in-person therapist in their area. So I'll actually get on the computer and do the search and call the office and make sure it would be a good fit and get even the appointment for that person if they want.
Okay.
So every once in a while I've had to step out and engage a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, and that's good to know. So I think that people that have had some of these questions, whether they're local to you or whether they're, further away in another state, if they have something that comes up that might be a little more serious or need a little more, like you said, one of those rare circumstances, either they can come in the office or you can help find them someone. So that's good to know they can still be supported and still have that taken care of for them.
I would like to add one more thing there, and that's some reassurance that we do, when you do sign up for the email coaching, there is a form we have you fill out to give us a little bit of information about yourself. And if I think for any reason that email coaching would not benefit you, I would pick up the phone, give you a call, and we'd straighten that out. I would not take your money to do email coaching if I thought it wasn't helpful for you. So that's
good
point I want
to,
to make.
That's good to know. And since you brought up money, I know that's another question that some people have sent in is like, what is the cost and how does the payment work? And do they have to do the email coaching for a certain amount of time?
Yeah, because I love the idea of you being able to contact me whenever something is hot. If there's a topic that's really on your mind, and that's the time we get the most work done. That's one of the things about email coaching I love. Nothing's worse than having someone come into the office and say, I had this problem 2 weeks ago, but now it's kind of gone by now, or what have you. So to that end, I made this a subscription pricing program where you pay once a month. So you and I don't have to worry about how often you came in or how often you spoke to me or how long was your email. It just takes that all away. So it's very simple. It's $175 a month. Pay that, it's just a reoccurring fee, and whenever you want to stop it, you can stop it. No questions, no problem.
And it's great to know how that pricing works too for maybe those individuals that they have a budget and they're needing to stick within a certain range, but yet they really need some support. They need some help with some certain situations in life that they can, be able to have this alternative. Now, do they have to stay in it for a certain amount of months, or can they just do a couple months?
You could do 1 month, 2 months, whatever. I've had the range. I've had somebody finish up in 3 weeks, and they said, it's fine, keep the money, because they emailed me 4 times a day about something, finished up, and that was all they needed. And I have someone who I'm still seeing from BetterHelp, so I've been seeing her for 5 years.
Wow.
So I've had the whole gamut.
Well, that's good to know, because there may be some people that maybe need some help for a little while. They get things taken care of, but then maybe down the road they need to come back to you. So that's really great. So another question, people have been asking how this works. With the platform that you use, are they able to use it on their mobile phones, their cell phones, or their tablets?
Yes, that's the other thing. Why we went through this platform, Simple Practice, because they are a practice for small physicians' offices, and they've got it all figured out. I could not spend my time. We used to use Google Calendar and all these things. We tried to figure it out ourselves, but they're always 5 steps ahead of the curve with all of that, because that's their job. So yes, it's all mobile. It's all, I think, across all devices. I think even iPads, PCs, Macs. So.
Well, that's awesome, because I know a lot of people may be thinking, wait, I have a question, but I'm not carrying my computer around.
I know. I'm very attached to my phone. Here it is.
Yes.
Always here.
I know, my phone's always with me, and I may think of, something I really need some help on. And so when you're in that moment, that's when you want to be able to get that feedback and be able to send that question, because a couple hours later, you may have forgotten and not be able to remember it as clearly as you did in the moment. Like you said, when it's hot. When they really
bringing technology into emotional treatment. Yes.
Yeah, Definitely. No, that's so good to know. So now what if someone is already in counseling? Can they add email coaching, or how does that part of it work?
Oh yeah, I saw that question come in. I love that because of course, whenever you're working with somebody else, I think it's important to bring up that topic with them. So I don't want to undermine any other help, but I haven't had any other counselor, coach, therapist balk at someone getting extra help. So I've never seen that happen, but I do encourage that. So yes, it's definitely an adjunct that can be extremely helpful. And most other mental health professionals want you to get better, and so would applaud that.
That's good to know, because
Yeah.
some people, yeah, that I think that's probably definitely a um, concern. We've had, some people ask, so others are probably wondering that as well. Now, what about, I'm just looking through some more of these questions that are sent in. So we've talked about kind of like the frequency or how often they can email you, but can you give some examples of like specific types of questions they can ask? That seems to be a really big one, as I think people, even though you've mentioned like if they needed support beyond, or if you didn't feel that that this would help them, you would let them know. But what specifically have people come to you about, or what are those things you can really help, and maybe give a few examples?
Right. I think that would help people get their mind wrapped around this a little bit more.
Right.
Give an example, a common, so I'm not breaking any confidentiality, but I'll give you sort of a generality of how it goes. So a lot of people write in that they're in a bad relationship, or a relationship that's making them unhappy.
Mm.
And so then I would write back some questions asking about that particular relationship.
Mm.
What is it that particularly makes you unhappy? Is it fighting? Is it that he's not there, or that you are too busy with other things or have other commitments? So I'd get to the bottom of what exactly is making them unhappy. Looking at past relationships also, because often there's a pattern there, right? It's hard for us to see when we're in it, but
Yeah.
it's a little easier to see if I see the pattern. And then we get to drill down even further. So what is that pattern? And it almost always comes down to something like, are you having trouble saying no? So you take on everything and are resentful. Do you think he's abusing substances and don't know how to put up a boundary there? Do you take on too much at work and therefore don't have enough to give when you get home? So it's going to be something like that. We find out the why. Why is the problem there? Then we would go into the what to do about that problem.
Mm.
That involves often, I don't like to give advice too much because we're all adults and advice isn't a good thing, comes off like criticism, but I will give maybe suggestions, or help them come up with their own advice and suggestions based on the why. And maybe we do some role playing on how to break the pattern, right? Because people often think they need to change somebody else to make a relationship better.
Yeah.
You can make changes yourself to make the relationship better. And we then talk about how to do that. Then they report back, I tried that, it worked. I tried that, it didn't work. I tried that, this part worked, this didn't. We hone that down until that pattern is broken and the relationship is better.
That's great. That's great. So they can come to you and get that advice, but also it sounds like get some action steps and some things they can implement in their life. And I know when I was going through my divorce, something like this would have been helpful, because things come up and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, and you don't want to handle it wrong, or not say wrong, but you don't want to make the situation worse.
Right.
So if I'd had somebody I could just send a quick email to and say, I'm not sure how to handle this, that would have been so useful at the time.
Exactly.
So I think that's a good example, so that people can understand just, some of the ways that they can, or some of the types of situations they can come to you with, and things they can get help with.
Right. So it's a combination. I like to say I have different, like I said, I learned all these different methods, and I pull out the one that's going to be the most helpful. And this is where people get a little shy sometimes, but I need the feedback, because some people will say, oh, that's really helpful. Some people will say, that's not helpful for me. It's more of a team effort. That's why I say I don't like to give advice. It's not like you're telling me a problem and I tell you what to do.
Right.
If you tell me a problem and together we figure it out and work it out like teammates, because I can't tell you what's going to work for you, and I don't know your spouse, but through your eyes, I can guide you.
Yeah. And that's good to know then that feedback is going to be really important in the email coaching, so that if you're working with someone, they need to be honest if it's working, if it's not, and so you can then better support them.
Exactly.
So that's really good to know. So then, is there anything that's off limits that people cannot ask about?
There's nothing off limits. There's the scenario where I have to pull in some extra help if
Right.
someone's imminently going to hurt themselves. That's
Right.
the best example. Then I have to pull somebody else in with their permission and with their knowledge. But there's really nothing off limits I can think of.
That's good to know. That was one of the questions we had. So yeah. Well, I think with email coaching maybe being new to some people, they're just, like we said, trying to kind of get their heads wrapped around, like, well, how does this work? What does it include? And that's just one of the natural things people would wonder is, well, maybe there's some things I'm not supposed to talk about. And
if it's a problem, talk about it.
So you kind of touched on this just now when you were saying that getting feedback and figuring out if the things are helping or not. But one of the questions has been, can this really help me make changes in my life? Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Exactly. So with all emotional problems, again, when you're in it, you can't see the pattern, you can't see the reoccurrence, you can't see what part you're contributing to. Yes, the other person is contributing something, and sometimes we get focused, and I do this too, we get focused on what the other person is doing because it's so hard for us to see. So that's where my role comes in, to help you see, well, you're contributing, but that's good news, because then you can break the cycle, you can break the pattern. So yes, so getting through that pattern and getting through the changes of you not only will help you in this situation, but I'd like to point out it'll help you in all situations, because if you're doing this pattern with somebody, you're probably doing it with a bunch of other people who don't even know it. So a lot of people come back to me and just be sort of almost surprised that, well, I not only fix this relationship, but also my relationship with my sibling is better too. It can have a ripple effect.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's true, and that's a really good point. I think everybody listening will be like, oh, that's great. Other areas of my life can improve as well, other than just the one I was, wanting to address. I'm just looking through the questions here, and you already answered. I was just looking through these. It looks like you've answered the majority of these questions that have come in, because some people, most of them were similar. If we didn't read it, like you said, you can respond to them. It was a little more personal.
I do. Thank you for pointing that out. Right. So I did say I was committed to answering every question that you have, and I really am. But Sarah and I did agree beforehand that some questions are better answered on this platform, and I would rather answer some questions a little bit more personally by email. So if I didn't get to your question, no worries. We still have time for me to answer those today. We are going to be sending out another email this afternoon, so keep your eyes open. It's going to be a replay of this webinar along with a link. So if you feel email coaching is a good fit for you, that's the link, that's the place to sign up. Super simple. Fill out a couple things, put in a credit card, and you're done. You're in. I'll get those forms to you, and we'll get started. If I did not answer a question, you still have one, please don't be embarrassed, even if I've said it here and you want me to say it a different way. Just click reply to that email. It's going to come this afternoon. Send me your question. I'll get it back to you before we close down the email coaching subscription. Like I said, I really want to have a small group to start with, so I can attend to those people and get everybody on board, with the best help possible. So we are going to be closing the doors tonight at midnight to this offer, but I will get your questions answered before then if you have some.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been great, and I think everybody's going to find it so helpful that had these questions, and maybe even answered some questions they didn't realize they had.
I hope so.
All right.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody.
Thanks.